I'm Idiotech, and today I want to talk to you about console ports, essentially. And the reason I'm discussing this week is because last week we had the horrible Batman Arkham Knight fiasco and disaster. So I thought it was fitting to discuss maybe some of the potential reasons behind why these things keep happening time and time again, and look into it a little bit deeper than maybe some people in the comments section of my previous video were willing to do. Not to have a go at any of you guys, but some of the arguments people were making were ridiculous. Anyway, the prevailing argument seems to be that piracy is the cause, right? Piracy leads to reduced income on the PC platform, making it essentially not worth the development time and effort. Which, I don't know. If that's the case, right, then why release a game on PC at all? If the situation is so bad, then why spend the money and time developing a port in the first place? Surely releasing a game that isn't playable or is broken in some way or just isn't satisfactory is going to encourage piracy even more, and refunds now because we have that system, and also it's going to hurt any goodwill the customer might have had towards the studio. It doesn't seem like very smart business sense, right? Why go in if it's that bad? That's essentially what I'm saying. And the other claim is that PC games don't make enough money. I don't think that's a very reasonable argument, to be honest. I mean, I just have to point to Grand Theft Auto 5 or The Witcher 3 or even the recently released early access game Ark Survival Evolved to prove that theory wrong. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, they may not make as much money as consoles, and that does explain why developers choose to focus more on the console market. However, to say that publishers are simply not interested in the PC platform because it doesn't have the potential to generate healthy profits is fucking ridiculous, honestly. Now, that being said, I think most of these arguments that people make do have some truth to them, but they don't satisfy me, right? They certainly don't explain why a company like Warner Brothers would give a studio of 12 people 8 weeks to port a game to PC. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? It doesn't explain that at all, especially when you consider that they also released Shadow of Mordor, which ran exceptionally well on PC for the most part, as far as I can remember. Now, in my mind, the reason this keeps happening is because the developers keep mismanaging their projects. I mean, we continually see release dates being pushed back further and further each year. There's hardly any games coming out at all this year, and that's because every game that gets announced at E3 inevitably gets pushed back because developers can't meet their deadlines. Now, don't get me wrong here, development's extremely hard, and I'm not attacking developers necessarily, but, you know, if you don't hit your targets, it's going to cost the publisher more money to keep you in business. And eventually the publisher's going to say, okay, enough is enough, right? They're going to start putting pressure on the developer and eventually, in some cases, pull the plug entirely and release broken games. And this is where I think we run into problems. As we've sort of established, or at least for the sake of this video, let's just say that this is the case, the console market is the focus of many developers. And they do make more money from that market. That's arguable, but let's just say for the sake of this video that they do, and that's where their focus is. So you would say this focus is justified if those things are in fact true. However, when a product is shipped before it's finished, that also means the areas of the game that receive the least attention during development are going to suffer. And if they are focusing on the console market more, that means the PC version of the game is going to suffer. So this is why I think that Warner Brothers or Rocksteady or whoever it was gave this Iron Galaxy studio of 12 people 8 weeks to port the game to PC. Because they'd overrun their budget and their deadline by a lot, right? I mean, we all know the game was pushed back, I think it was 8 months. So it's clear that they weren't meeting their deadlines in the first place, right? And so eventually the publisher just goes, look, I'm not going to keep paying you money. Give me the product I am paying you for. Just give it to me. I don't care what it's like. I'll try and recoup some costs. And that's just the unfortunate nature of business. And because, you know, piracy does have a role, okay? I mean, it does. We can't deny that. It does take away some of the potential profits. I don't think it's as extreme as publishers maybe think that it is, but, you know, it does hurt profits to some degree, especially in single-player games, right? And the market isn't as big, I guess, for these types of games, but honestly, I think really the core issue here is that expectations from both gamers and publishers and studios on what games should be these days, you know, to keep pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries, and creating the next amazing, realistic experience just increases budgets, inflates expectations, developers can't meet those expectations, they can't meet the deadlines, that leads to pressure from publishers, that pressure leads to broken and unfinished games being released consistently, and we keep seeing that now, even on consoles games are coming out that don't work, and that's uncommon. So I think overall it's an issue with the industry as a whole, more than it is, well, PC games, you know, there's piracy, or the PC games just don't make enough money. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's a bigger issue to do with the AAA industry as a whole, and how it's not really very sustainable at this point. You know, we're looking at budgets for things like Destiny at $500 million. Okay, that's an extremely large budget, and it's not reasonable. And if expectations keep going up and up with every console generation, then inevitably I think the AAA industry is kind of in trouble, and I don't think they can remotely meet expectations. I mean, the number of people these days saying, oh, well, you know, this console game doesn't feel next gen, it's because, like, they can't do anything more, right? Without it, there's a thing called diminishing returns, right? We've seriously hit that wall now in AAA development, and I think it's just a matter of overblown budgets and mismanagement, and because PC isn't the focus, because it doesn't make quite as much money, you know, it's the first thing to go when it comes to, you know, things breaking, essentially. So hopefully in future, developers can maybe lower their, you know, scope for these ridiculously massive AAA games and maybe bring out games that work. And thankfully we do have a refund system now, so we can actually say something back when they do try and sell us these broken games. But I think it's a lot more complicated than people give it credit for. I think it's an issue that is mostly centered around budgets and mismanagement of projects and unreasonable expectations from everyone, you know, towards the AAA games industry. I don't think it's a very sustainable market, to be honest, and I think a lot of these developers and publishers realize that, and especially the publishers, and I think they're just sort of going, well, you know, let's just make as much money while this thing lasts. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments. Otherwise, like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.